So this arc calls back to a previous one called the Managed Sacred. And there's a different perspective to take here during the reconstruction. So there's a moment after you've finally seen through the institutional version of God when things go quiet in a way you weren't prepared for. You stop arguing with the building, you stop arguing with the priest, the pastor, the rabbi, the meditation teacher. You stop arguing with the version of your father who took you to a place every week. You just stop. And then you notice that the space where the sacred used to be feels like there's something missing. And it's not a clean type of missing. It's not the clean wound that the dismantling was supposed to leave. And it's shaped like an institution. And that's the thing I want to talk about. Because you did the work. You saw the doctrine for what it was, and you also saw the hierarchy and the social compliance that you were told was devotion. And you also saw the way the framework around death gave you permission not to feel death, and the way the framework around suffering gave you a story so you wouldn't have to sit inside the silence of it. And if you've been with me for a while, you've taken all of that down, and what you have left might be exhaustion because the frameworks are gone and the community that gathered under them is gone, and the rituals that marked the births and the marriages and the burials are gone, or they're empty, or they're tolerated for someone else's sake. And now you're standing in your own home with no doctrine left, and the question still arrives, what was that? And what is this? And what happens now that it's ended? And most of us, when the absence becomes that loud, we do one of three things. We reach for a new spiritual framework so that we can manage the question away, or we go ironic. We turn the question into a category error, and that makes it small enough to fit in a sentence that we can deliver at a dinner without flinching. Or we get busy. We make the days so loud that the question can't get a word in edgewise. Now, I've done all three, and maybe you have as well, and none of them are encounter with the actual sacred. They're all management. But here's the thing, something still survives. Something was there before the institution showed up, something that the institution organized itself around. It didn't invent it. It didn't author it. It never owned it, because the institution built walls around it, and over time the walls became thicker than the thing they were built to house and the thing that they placed themselves between. And so then access to the sacred became access to the building, and the building charged for admission. And you've seen the admission when they hand the plate around in the church. They require belief and compliance, and so you surrender your own direct contact. But the thing was older than the building. You just have to look at the cave paintings. 30,000 years before the first temple, someone pressed their hand into wet pigment and laid it on a stone wall in the dark. Nobody knows why, but somebody stood in the dark and made the gesture. We look at the burial sites before any theology had ever been written. Someone stood over a body and felt the weight of what had left it. And they dug and they buried and they placed flowers and relics and they marked the spot. That feeling, that gesture, that weight, that was the sacred before we gave it a name. And the institutions came later, and the institutions were the walls, and the institutions became the intermediary. But the thing that was always inside the walls is still inside you. And you felt it. A morning where the light caught something in you that the management couldn't process fast enough to file away. And the scale of it stayed open for a second longer than it should have. You've also felt it in a moment with someone you love, where the depth of what was passed between you broke through the relational register the room had been calibrated for. You both noticed. Neither of you said anything, but the room held it. And you also feel it in the moment alone after something difficult, when the size of the life you were inside became briefly available. So the institution didn't make those moments. The institution wasn't even in the room. That was the sacred operating without permission, because it doesn't need a building, didn't need a doctrine. It just needed you present in real contact with something that exceeded the ordinary. That's all it ever needed. The institution told you it required the institution. That was the capture. The experience itself has been telling you otherwise for as long as you've been alive. What this arc is about now is not building a new institution. It's not picking a tradition off the shelf because you're tired of the absence and need to fill the hole with something. It's also not about finding the right teacher and outsourcing the question to them. It's the recognition that the thing the institutions claimed to mediate was never theirs to mediate. It was yours, and it still is, and it's closer than the institution ever let you know. That's where this arc starts. It's not a framework, it's with recognition. Something's survived, and you're about to meet it directly. If this transmission shifted something, then the work is already moving in you. And it starts with a free book that I wrote that's the first step on this path. It's called Before Approaching the Threshold. It's free, and the link to access it is in the show notes. Welcome to The Architect Speaks.